Hello, everyone. Yes, you're not seeing things. It is truly I, Stephanie Powell. I'm back. Yes, I am back in full force. I know I've been away for a while, for a few months, but the true Libra I am, I have to stay balanced. And there were some exciting things that were going on with myself and my husband for the past few months. And so, something said, you know what, Stephanie, you can't do it all. So we're going to talk about it on pause just for a little bit and come back with full force. And that's exactly what we're doing here this evening. I want to thank everyone, all of the Talk About It family members who have contacted me to say, Stephanie, where have you been? Where has Talk About It been? Thank you so much for finding value in the information that we provide here on this platform. As you know, our tagline is for better living. Talk about it for better living. We're all about sharing information on wellness, be it emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, even financial wellness. That's what we talk about here on this platform. And thank you to all of my prospective guests who said, hey, Stephanie, I'm ready to come on the show. Well, let's get ramped back up because I want to share my message of wellness. So thank you to you as well, who, again, trust me with this platform and are willing to partner with me to share the message on wellness to help as many people as possible. I have one such guest here tonight who has trusted me so wonderfully with this platform. And let me tell you something, Talk About It family. We are in for a real treat. We have Sooyong Kim. She is a healing practitioner. She's going to tell you a little bit more about herself later on in just a few minutes. But we have her not only for tonight, or today rather, we have her for 8 months. Yes, every month, starting this month, we have her for the next 8 months. Why for 8 months? Well, because she is in the process of writing a book titled Immigrant Consciousness Healing for Beginners. And that book is 8 chapters long. And she has partnered with me to provide a video series that will give you a sneak peek into what that book is about. We have partnered to do a video on each of the 8 chapters. Little snippet, because we know you're busy. We know there's a lot of content out there. So we have just provided, or Sooyong has, a little snippet of each chapter of her upcoming book, Immigrant Consciousness Healing for Beginners. And we are releasing them every month. We just released the video on the first chapter just a few days ago. And these lives that we're having every month, they are giving you the opportunity to, again, get the inside scoop as we do a deeper dive into each of the chapters. So the little video snippets are available here on Talk About It. They're available on her website, SooyongKim.com, as well as the Talk About It YouTube channel. Please check there regularly. Check out the videos where in just a few seconds, she gives you a real gem to help you on your healing journey. And these lives, you have the opportunity to connect with her, to ask her directly your questions about the video and those chapters. So without further ado, I have to give them the background, Sooyong. I have to give them the background on what we're doing here together.
Yeah.
We are conspiring to provide great information through this book. And I want you, Sooyong, to give, in your words, just background on yourself so that Talk About It viewers can understand just what your background is as it relates to this book that's about healing. What's your background? It's quite impressive. You're really a devotee of healing and helping people like the mission of Talk About It, to be well and live their best life. So tell us a bit about your background, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the book.
Yeah, I've had a multicultural background because I actually grew up in South Korea, Malaysia, and the US. And I lived in New York City for 14 years before moving to the DC area. So I ran into all kinds of people from all over the world. A lot of them were immigrants or descendants of immigrants. And since I've had my healing practice for the last 25 years, of course, I've run into a lot of clients who have had different issues that come up having to do with immigrant consciousness. So in my journey, in my healing journey, I have come up with many different tools that you can use from your toolbox to heal yourself and live a more purposeful, fun life.
Mm-hmm. And so you spoke of people encountering different types of issues. If you wouldn't mind just kind of sharing what some of those issues were that people were encountering.
Particularly from an immigrant consciousness point of view,
Mm-hmm.
I would say one of them would be shame, because you're different. You're different from everybody else. You might be speaking a different language. You might look different from the regular population, and you might feel like an outsider. So there's that going on. There's the strive to be perfect because you want to prove yourself in this new country. And I think that's true for most of us.
Yes, it is.
We all have that achievement thing going on.
Yes, I can attest to that.
Yeah, I know, Stephanie, you were telling me about your story.
Yes, it's real. Yes.
So that's some of the stuff that's going on. And also I call myself a bridge between two worlds. And initially, when you think about that, when you're a bridge, you're really not belonging to either part. You're just in the gap. So you go to this culture and you're not a member. You're too American. You go to this culture, you don't belong there either. So to become the bridge, I think that's a real challenge for a lot of immigrants and descendants of immigrants.
Yes, and you talked about immigrant consciousness.
Yes.
And that being the focus. And you've given us some insight into what that is. But can you give us just a full-on definition of what immigrant consciousness is?
Yes, I mean, this is something that I have come up with because there really are not too many books out there about this particular topic, especially about healing this type of consciousness. But it has to do with maybe being a stranger in a strange land and wanting to fit in and wanting to succeed in that new land. And of course, our ancestors have done that as well. And we do inherit a lot of the issues, a lot of the patternings. They've done a lot of research now where it shows that, yeah, you can inherit trauma. Right. So it really helps to look at our ancestry and to look at our ancestors.
And so what you're saying is, Sooyong, that you don't necessarily have to be a first generation, immigrant.
Not at all.
To have immigrant consciousness.
Right. I mean, if you look at this country, for example, I mean, it is a country of immigrants because everybody, including the First Nations, came from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So if you go back far in history, I mean, people came here on the Mayflower. They came here against their will on slave ships. They came via jumbo jetliner. They came via Ellis Island. I mean, you have all kinds of stories.
Yes.
But if you go back far enough, everybody came from somewhere else.
Yes. Yes. It's so interesting. You're saying that we can inherit trauma from our ancestors.
Yes.
Speaking to someone, one of my friends from high school who is a Reiki master. She's into energy healing. And one of the things that kind of led her on that path was to heal not only her own trauma, but also that of her mother. And so she said, through healing herself, she was able to kind of heal things within her mom. Does that resonate with you? Have you heard of that? Or could you explain that a little more if that's something that's common?
Yes, I mean, you've heard that saying, seven generations before and seven generations forward. Supposedly, if you look at the mystical traditions, if we heal, then we heal seven generations back and forward. So it's very inspiring. And I've noticed that since I've been on my healing journey, my mom has actually become so open-minded. It's just crazy, because I mean, she used to be this very conservative Presbyterian woman, and now she's looking at lectures by Buddhist monks and Catholic priests. I mean, this would have been
Wow.
unheard of 10, 20
That is
years ago. And she's saying,
amazing.
oh, they're so great. They have so much great information. I just love it,
That's
right?
incredible. I'm just curious. Is your mom here in the States or?
Yes, she lives in the Philly area. She's going to be 96 this year, and she writes a blog every day. She's been doing that for 2 years.
Wow. Wow, that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Well, so young, I think we have some insight into, given your background, what compelled you to write the book, with your, being an immigrant yourself and what you have witnessed and encountered with some of your clients and people that you've seen. Was there anything else that really compelled you where you just felt like, I need to answer the call, I need to write this book now?
I just felt that especially with COVID-19, I mean, so many people are experiencing depression, anxiety. That's really a given with most of the clients that I see. And people are talking about it a lot. And a lot of people are seeing therapists. I mean, therapists are really doing well right now because so many people are going to them.
Yes.
And I mean, there's also increased hatred going on in this country, as you know. I mean, a lot of attacks on certain groups of people, a lot of course, the guns, the shootings and all that kind of stuff. So I feel that this is a good time to talk about healing a lot of issues that are coming up.
Thank you. Thank you for this offering. I believe that creative output, if possible, should help uplift and heal. So this is so wonderful what you're doing. So let's get into the chapters. There are 8 chapters. We're going to really focus here in this live on the first, but I want to give people background and just kind of give them a look at the whole picture in terms of what they can expect down the road as we talk about each of the chapters over the next few months. So tonight we're talking about chapter 1, the topic being inner wisdom. What are the other 7 chapters?
Okay, so chapter 2 is ancestral healing, which I mentioned briefly. Chapter 3 is fun healing, because healing doesn't have to be all like suffering and horrible. The 4th is healing our relationships. 5th is creativity is crucial. 6 is self-acceptance. 7 is allow the flow, and 8 is trust and surrender.
I just love the topics, and everyone, I know you're loving those topics too. Those topics make you want to tune in, don't they? Absolutely amazing. So in terms of the order, I mean, we've heard all 8. Is there any particular, meaning behind the order of the topics? When I heard for the last one, trust and surrender, I mean, to me, that felt like just kind of a good way to wrap up the book. But is there any kind of strategy to the order of the chapters?
I felt that the first 2 chapters were really crucial. I mean, because if you can get in touch with your inner wisdom, you can do anything. And if you can get there, even if people read just the one chapter, I feel like a lot of the work has already been done. And ancestral healing, I feel like, is a crucial part. And once we can connect with our ancestors, then a lot of the healing work will be done as well. And then the rest of it just kind of flowed organically, just living our daily lives and having relationships and healing all kinds of issues, all kinds of interactions that we have with people, whether it's just somebody that you see in the store who's pissing you off, or somebody who cuts you off in traffic, or somebody that you have a lifelong relationship with.
Interesting. Well, Sooyong, what I want to do before we talk about chapter 1, which is tonight's topic, I want to play the video. And it may not be the best. I'm going to play it from my iPad, and I'm going to show it here. And I think it'll show well enough for people to get the gist. And the audio should be pretty good. But I want people to hear the video, watch the video first. And I see people tuning in. Hi, and Clark, welcome to talk about it. You're right on time. Please meet Sooyong Kim, my special guest, talking about her book, Immigrant Consciousness Healing for Beginners. Tonight, we're talking about chapter 1. And we've done videos on each of the chapters that we will be releasing. And we're about to play video 1 before we talk about it. So here we go. Hang in there with me, everybody, while I bring the iPad, and we are going to play.
How do we know whether it's our ego or our inner wisdom speaking? As my spiritual teacher Ken Wapnick used to say, if it's benefiting just you and your peeps, then it's your ego. And if it's benefiting everyone, it's your inner wisdom. So make sure that you check in and meditate and relax to know what different answers there may be to make it a win-win situation.
Wow. Okay, that video is just a few seconds long, but it says so much. And I'm just ready to dive right in to what you're sharing there. This is the basis of chapter 1, Inner Wisdom, where you're talking about, there's several key things that stood out to me in that video and in this chapter. You talk about win-win. Somehow that stood out to me. You talk about creating circumstances in which there is a win-win situation. But I have so many questions that, for me personally, that I want to take away. And I'm so glad I have this opportunity to talk with you about this in terms of advice on how to really put this into practice. So let's start with inner wisdom, the topic. Are there other terms or phrases that people might be accustomed to using or hearing with regard to inner wisdom? Are there like synonyms, so to speak, for inner wisdom? Yeah, I mean, some people use the universe, infinite intelligence. I mean, some people will say God, whoever calls out to you, maybe some of the gods and goddesses that are around, angels, your guides, spirit guides, whatever your belief system is, that somebody is, it's a part of you that knows everything about you and that can give you some wisdom in that particular situation. Excellent. I think I myself have used a number of those names that you've cited myself. So yes, thank you for providing that context, so we'll know exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about inner wisdom. So let's go to the other big piece of it, where you talk about ego. Some people think of ego as just bravado, but how do you define ego? Well, ego is that part of ourselves that really wants to go into the ditch, create a lot of drama and conflama, and just, if you think of a 2-year-old having a temper tantrum, that's how I think of the ego. And
so, and some people say, well, I mean, you should really get rid of your ego and all that. But I mean, the ego is a part of us. So sometimes I'll think of the 2-year-old and I'll say, okay, let me give you a hug. Come over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, why don't you relax in my arms?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we do have to work with the ego because we have it while we're here on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say it's not easy.
Is there any value to ego? Is there any, what's the upside of ego, if any?
Well, I mean, I guess it gives us a personality of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they say that when we separated, that's what caused the ego to come about. So
Mm-hmm.
it depends on how you think about it. If you feel that the separation was, I mean, that's why we're here, right? Because we
Yes.
separated.
Yes, exactly. The other piece that stood out, so inner wisdom, what that is, ego, that was a big piece. But you, in this video, you recommend a couple of strategies. You mentioned relaxation and meditation as tools to get in touch with our inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And I have to say, just personally speaking, and many of you out there might feel the very same way. There's so many distractions, Sooyong, in a
Yeah.
day. It's said that we process maybe 35,000, make roughly 35,000 decisions or 35,000 thoughts in a day. So
Mhm.
many distractions. We have social media. We have opinions of others. We have, advertisements that are constantly being thrown at us every which way. It just seems like it's just day to day throughout the day. How do you recommend that we really step back from the noise, so to speak, and really get in touch? Some people may be familiar with meditation, some not. Can we just speak a little bit more deeply in terms of what does that look like in terms of what people should do to get in touch?
Well, I think you have to make a decision. You have to make a commitment to
Mhm.
do it. And it doesn't have to be just sitting and being quiet. I mean, you could do a moving meditation. So let's say that you're in the office and you get into an argument with someone,
Mhm.
right? You could get away. You could say, hang on, I have to take care of something. I'll be back.
Mhm.
You could go outside for 10 minutes. You could go, if you don't have a place to go, maybe an empty conference, you could go to the bathroom into a stall and just stay there and do some breathing and some reflection. And being out in nature, of course, is wonderful to
Mhm.
really relax you.
Mhm.
So if you could actually get outside, get some water or something and just take a quick walk around and just say, universe, please help me with this. What do what is this inner wisdom? What do you think about this situation? And I think the longer you have to kind of sit with it.
Mhm.
Maybe if you can sleep on it, that would be even better.
Mhm.
So I think if you don't come with this immediate decision of like, you suck or whatever, whatever you feel like saying, just stop yourself. Just stop yourself and time out.
Mhm.
Right?
Put yourself, normally you put the 2-year-old, but you were speaking about the 2-year-old earlier. That ego is like that 2-year-old. So putting that
Yeah.
2-year-old in timeout.
Time out. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need it. We
Yes.
need it. Because, I mean, in the heat of the moment, I mean, forget it. We're not thinking straight. I mean, we're not relaxing. We're not meditating. We're just like, yeah, what's wrong with you? It's all your fault, whatever.
Yes. Yes. Also young. I should have talked with you about this, and my husband's on the line about 2 hours ago. And so this is kind of, I'm going to have a transparent moment here. I'm going to share and hope that it'll help others.
Uh-huh.
It's a situation in which my husband and I we're helping someone.
Mm-hmm.
And in a very, very generous way, giving of time, resources. And we reached a point where, we did some boundary setting, and we said, okay, I think this is where it ends,
Right.
blessings, wish you well, but, got to pivot, move on to some other things. Mind me, this was not any contractual obligation. This was out of the kindness of our heart, helping. And the person flipped it and then made it seem as though somehow we were out of line, and even kind of insinuated some malfeasance of some sort. And honestly, Sooyong, I'll admit it, I lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just gave and gave and gave and gave and gave so much, to the point where people like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
But we gave so much, and it was so painful to have that just kind of turned. And you talk about that 2-year-old. That 2-year-old came out and had a full-on temper tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
And because it wasn't just directed at me, it was directed at my husband too. And I get, you get kind of protective of your family, of your loved ones.
Sure.
I did not tell that 2-year-old to go in timeout. I did not. I let that 2-year-old just.
Yeah, but maybe that's probably exactly what was needed in that situation. I would not judge yourself. I would say that, how did the other person react to that?
They, of course, they didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think anybody likes it when, a 2-year-old has a temper tantrum. So, it wasn't met with joy of any kind.
Right, but did they
And I
understand?
just had to just announce that we're ending the conversation. I had to announce that we're ending the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you have a temper tantrum, I would not judge it. I mean, we all do. We're human. So you can apologize or whatever for your behavior, but then, hey, I hope you got the message.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It got real.
You got through. It got through,
real.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
good. Did his job.
I'm admitting to you, talk about it, family. But at any rate, so we have the distractions, but in addition to distractions, Sooyong, it seems like we are also kind of programmed from the time we're young, many of us,
Right.
to just kind of not tune in to inner wisdom. And you understand it from the parental standpoint. They need to provide guidance to a child who doesn't have the maturity and understanding of life to kind of make decisions on their own. But but sometimes that kind of guidance continues well into adulthood.
Right.
So you
And
got
then
the
it can
programming
become,
from parents and from schools and
yeah.
from other institutions, and so we're not really trained in a way to tap in. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's when this healing aspect is so important, because once we keep the layers coming out like the layers of an onion, then we can get to the core, and then we can see our authentic selves and see what we really would like, instead of what people told us that we were supposed to like.
Interesting. Yeah, it is a process. It's a definite
It is
process.
it's a daily process, believe me, and sometimes it's a minute by minute.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But I think one of the things too that helps me is, is the form of self-talk. It's like being very intentional about coaching myself through certain situations. It's like, okay, this is what we need to do. I think, like you said, it's a daily, almost minute by minute process
Yeah.
in some
And in the
cases.
past, I've actually called that aspect of ourselves our inner cheerleader, because it's like, you go, girl, that whole like cheering you on, that kind of thing.
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
really can help a lot.
yes, absolutely. So one challenge could be we're kind of programmed. Another one is distractions. Another one is that we kind of live in a world where it's about winning,
Yeah.
and not I'm not winning in the sense of win-win or win-win-win. It's about
Hmm.
personal wins. It's like I conquered, and I think that was kind of a part of what I was dealing with earlier. It wasn't about what's fair here. Um, it's about, it just seemed about that individuals need to win, you know,
Yeah.
at all costs. And it's like, wow, really? You know,
But, but
we
you
don't.
kind of,
Hmm.
yeah, you wonder, like, what if you win, though? I mean, is that going to make you happy? Or, I mean, is it going to bring you something that you can have in your heart? Or is it just going to be this momentary, oh, yeah, I won that, I'm so happy for like a week? I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
if you buy a new car or something, they say you're happy for a week.
Hmm.
So winning can be very, very similar to that. But if
Hmm.
you've, I mean, there have been examples of people who actually, I mean, like I think even in the Olympics where they kind of became co-winners, they finagle something where they became co-winners.
Hmm.
And there was just so much more satisfaction in that kind of a situation, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, just because you win doesn't mean that you really win in the long run.
That's so true, Sooyong. And that was one of my that was one of my comments. It's just like, you know, you can't possibly feel good about this. You can't possibly feel good about this.
Yeah, that's why I'm just not really big on competition.
Hmm.
But I really do believe that doing the best you can and living your fullest life and showing your abundant self is very important.
Hmm.
But I don't think you have to kick other people down or, step on other people while you're doing it. I think you can help people along the way
Hmm.
and help them up.
Yes, yes.
So,
That's a win-win. And that's something that I really try to apply in my life. I
mhm.
try to really look for the win-win in just about all situations. And
Right.
and you do have to do that with intention. You have
Yes,
to
you do. You
really
have to
in
set
the
the intention.
moment.
Hmm.
And I think it's possible. I think it's really possible, but you have to care about it. You have to invest the time and again, be intentional about, okay, how can everyone win in this situation? And to me, I feel like that's the best outcome that you can have when it's a
Yes, I
win-win.
mean, I agree with you 100% there.
Yes. So let's look at the practical application for everyone. You know, going and listening to our inner wisdom. Can you explain once again? I know we listened to the video, but again, in terms of determining, is this inner wisdom talking or is this ego talking?
Right.
Again, relaxing, using one of the techniques that you had mentioned earlier. But what are some of the telltale signs when we know, okay, if this is the case, it's inner wisdom. If this is the case, this is ego. What is it again? If it affects.
Yeah, if it benefits only you or a certain number of your friends or your whatever, your country or whatever,
Mhm.
then it's probably ego. And if it benefits everyone, and I think if you if you really do the research
Mhm.
and look at all the different solutions, then you can come up with something that will benefit the most number of people, the best outcome for the largest number of people.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it takes commitment. I mean, it really takes commitment. And as you said, you really have to decide to do it. You have to commit to it. It's not easy.
Yes, it's
It's so easy
yes.
to just grab whatever, you know.
Yes, yes. And I think sometimes too, when people do feel that it's worth it and you should employ this technique, but when you see a number of other people who don't,
Right, right.
and you encounter that in a day, that may be kind of discouraging for some people to say, oh, if you can't beat them, join them. I'll just become one of
Right.
those people.
Yeah, I mean, it can be discouraging, but then you have to look to see, well, what is your purpose in this life? Why are you here? And what do you want to accomplish? And what do you want to leave as a legacy? Then you have to make that decision. I mean, do you want to just grab stuff and step over people, or do you want to create solutions that help the largest number of people? So it really depends on what your intention is and what your commitment is.
Do you think that this is something that's easier to apply when someone is young during the formative years of our lives?
I don't think so.
No. So
Well,
you
I
don't
mean, no,
think that
maybe when they're children, but I mean, not like after they become teens and adults, because we just become so inculcated, you know, with all this stuff.
So you don't think that there's anything that parents can do to try to, to try to raise children who are
I
aware of this principle and can apply that at an early age.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at very young children, I think they're willing to share and they know what's fair. I mean, it's really amazing. They're not prejudiced. I mean, they accept everyone. So I mean, that's a very young age though, before they go to school usually. But I mean, I think the best way to teach someone is via example. And if you can live your life the way you want to live, and then you can kind of inform your children, like, this is what I'm doing now, and this is why I'm doing this, and go on from there. And I think, you know how they say children follow what they see, not what you say.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. So to model the behavior, I think, like
Yeah,
you said,
I think you really do, and walk the talk, as they say. I mean, just because you're preaching something doesn't mean that you have to follow what you're preaching, right?
Right. That's right. Let's look at different aspects of life in terms of applying this. Different aspects. So tuning into our inner wisdom in a family setting. In a family setting in which there's somewhat of a hierarchy, so to speak,
Right.
probably a power dynamic. And you have individuals who have their own sense of thinking, even the children, they have their own thoughts, they have their own feelings, they have their own desires. And so within a family dynamic, how do you do that within a family structure, tuning into inner wisdom? And particularly in a generational situation. I know I've seen where it's even hard for grandchildren to break away from what their grandparents expect of them.
Right.
And so they're not necessarily tuning into inner wisdom to make informed decisions. It can, and I've seen it become problematic where people later on, they just aren't great at making decisions because they're used to kind of the generations before them making the decisions for them. So they haven't exercised that muscle. Within a family structure, I mean, any recommendations? That can be hard.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the parents and the grandparents, because I mean, there's a certain amount of control that they want to have and that they want to encourage their children and grandchildren to do. But I think they have to become aware. And I mean, I think as soon as the children realize that they do have an inner wisdom, then they can access that. And I mean, in a situation like that, they probably won't get it from the parents or grandparents because they're too vested in having things turn out a certain way.
Yes.
So maybe the children will, I don't know, read some book or see some YouTube or whatever and try to access their inner wisdom and say, hey, you know, maybe your life was like that, but this is not for me. I'm going to go to art school or whatever, you know, whatever their interest is, instead of going to medical school, that kind of thing.
Yes, yes. And I think that's great advice. I myself had to do that.
Right.
You know, I had to, you know, there's certain expectations, and I had to tune in and choose my own life path, you know, even in terms of a profession. It's like, okay, you know, you might want me to be a lawyer, but I'd actually prefer to do this. And so, yes, I think that's so important, because at the end of the day, it's your life. It's your life.
Yeah. And I think you have to figure out what you want. I mean, I've known people who've gone to medical school and later on they told me, oh, you know, I wish I had studied interior design, or I wish I had done some other thing, but their parents kind of really pushed them to do that. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yes. Well, okay, so that's the family structure.
Yeah.
Let's go to the job. Okay, so there's money on the line here. Okay, and you know, you have a job to do. You know, you're working within an organizational structure, and then of course we're going to follow policies and procedures that are, you know, required in the workplace. You know, that's a given. But, you know, outside of that, there might be circumstances in which you are empowered to make decisions, but you don't understand that. And so you kind of find yourself following a path, even in the workplace, where you're not tuning into your inner wisdom. You're not looking for the win-win situations. What do you advise in that kind of environment?
Again, I think it really helps to have a meditation practice or some kind of spiritual practice, or just walking maybe out in nature every day. And I believe it's important to have a daily kind of practice so that you become better and better at it, at making decisions. And also you have to really get to know yourself. I mean, you might have been told all your life by someone, hey, I think you would like this. I think you like that. I think you should do this. You should, right? And then you just forget about what do you want? What do you want? What do you want to do with your life? What makes you fulfilled? What makes you happy? What's fun for you? Yes. And a lot of people don't even know that because they don't really get to know themselves. So I think this whole healing journey is a way to get to know yourself, to know your authentic self and let your authenticity come out and to express it in a powerful way.
You know, what you just said applies to just people of most any age, but for some reason my mind went to teenagers.
Yes.
You know, there's just so much that we're hearing lately about, you know, peer pressure and, you know, depression and things that teenagers are really facing. There's such a high incidence of that. I mean, what do you think is in this for teenagers who are, you know, they're at an interesting age where they're on that path of self-discovery. There may not be a high level of self-awareness that you mentioned. Is there anything that you would specifically recommend for that age group, teenagers, with regard to tuning into their inner wisdom? Any specific strategies that they might employ?
I mean, I don't think you're ever too young to start a meditation practice. It's just a matter of what your family is into. And all that, and what your religion is and so forth. And I mean, even in the religious households, you can always pray, which is a way of communicating with God. So I think to have something like that, to have different practices like maybe music and movement and being out in nature, I mean, all of that really helps a lot. I mean, I mean, I know it's really tough to be a teenager, so they need all the help that they can get.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Sooyong, any final words of advice on chapter 1 of your book on our inner wisdom?
Anybody can access your inner wisdom, and I would recommend just going into a meditation where you do some deep breathing through your abdomen, and then call on your inner wisdom to join you and to take a form that you can communicate with. And I do that with a lot of my clients while they're on my table, and it helps a lot. And generally they get, a lot of times they'll get a person or figure or even a feeling, something that they hear, something that they sense, that they smell. So this, maybe it's a light of some kind, bright light, the sun. I mean, it could be any number of things that resonates with you. And then you can ask, are you my inner wisdom? And then you'll hear the answer, yes or no. And then you can say, okay, thank you for being with me today. Would you please help me with the situation? I'm open to your suggestions. That's one way you can get in touch with your inner wisdom.
So that's key, being open and
yes,
being clear, just being open to receive the wisdom.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the universe is speaking to us all the time, but we're just not hearing?
All the time. Just like our ancestors and our spirit guides and whatever your belief system is, angels and all that are just helping us all the time. I mean, if we're open to it, then they're there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're not constrained by time or space.
Right. Do we have to call upon them?
Yes,
or
we do. Yeah, we have to say, here, let me, would you please talk to me, or would you please help me with this situation, or would you please bring me some healing for my whatever, you know, is going on, my aches and pains or whatever.
Okay. Well, I certainly do that and will continue to be doing that. And I will be employing the techniques that you have recommended here today, Sooyong, on tapping into our inner wisdom. The topic of chapter 1 of your book, Immigrant Consciousness Healing for Beginners. The book is in development. Through these lives that we're doing every month, Talk About It Family, you are getting insight into the book before it is released. So this is a wonderful opportunity to be here with Sooyong Kim, ask her questions, to do a deeper dive. And then once you get through the 8 chapters, you have a solid foundation. If you choose to buy and read the book, you have a solid foundation for really understanding and grasping the principles when you actually read the book. And I believe it's expected to be released in 2024. Sooyong, we're aiming for release.
I'm aiming for that.
So yes, so this is fantastic. We are going to be releasing the 2nd video in a couple of weeks. So please, Talk About It family, be sure to tune in to Sooyong's website. That's SooyongKim.com. It's, in fact, I've been there. It's a new, fancy, beautiful website that shows all of her services that she provides to clients. And I want you, before we close out, Sooyong, just to talk about the services you provide. I have been a client of Sooyong's for some years, as well as my husband, and I can tell you, she's good. So tell us a little bit about your services, Sooyong, before we close out. And
yes, I work on the table, and I do a combination of shiatsu, Reiki, and craniosacral therapy. And also I've taken so many other classes as well, so I kind of incorporate all my knowledge. And of course, my intuition and my inner wisdom into the session.
Absolutely. Sooyong is in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. So anyone tuning in from the DMV, as we call it, be sure to go to Sooyong's website. Feel free to sign up for, make an appointment, sign up for services, sooyongkim.com. Everything's right there and accessible. And check the website out just to learn more about her and to check out the videos that are coming out via the website and via the Talk About It platforms on Instagram and the Talk About It YouTube channel. We look forward to your staying with us on this 8-month journey with Sooyong Kim as we roll out the Fun Healing with Sooyong series that's based on her book, Immigrant Consciousness Healing for Beginners. Sooyong, you are awesome.
Thank you
You are
so
just
much.
awesome.
So
Thank you so
you.
much.
Right back at you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Talk About It family, for tuning in with us. Until next time, be well.
Okay, be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.